Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures game, and this is a miniatures game for real. It is not just a game that comes with some plastic miniatures, but it really embraces the miniatures aspect of the hobby, meaning that the game comes with a number of highly detailed miniatures that are made of many, many small parts that you have to glue together. They don't just stand together by themselves. And that means that for some of us, that's going to be a total torture, and maybe your miniatures will not look very good at the end. And if you just wanted to play the game, that's going to be a disappointment. For some of you, that is precisely what you want. Highly challenging, but ultimately very pretty miniatures, where you don't just glue an arm to a torso, but you had to glue together 3 Lilliputian plastic pieces just to make the arm, before then you glue it to a torso that requires many pieces, and so on and so forth. So, Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures game. You will have to build these fairly advanced miniatures, but at the end, the point of the game is to play these epic, sense-shattering, pulse-pounding battles in the grand Marvel tradition. It is a game that really does, by the way, capture the essence, the flow, the feel, the flavor of these crazy superpower battles that I've been following in comics for decades now, and some of you maybe became, familiar with through the movies, and that is okay also. So the miniatures, just to give you a sense, don't blame me. I told you I'm not a builder of miniatures. Yours will look a lot better. The glue will not be visible. You will paint them. You will not see all the parts where the miniatures have been cut from the frame, but in my personal miniatures, you will. So you get a sense of what the miniatures look like when somebody completely incompetent puts them together, and I think they still look pretty nice. In some cases, I don't think the tentacles of Akka were supposed to look quite like it, but they look exactly like you see them in my own miniature. Iron Man here lost part of his the cover of that shoulder. I just couldn't find it because some of these pieces are, again, pretty small. So I think you're getting a sense of what you're getting yourself into. You also have easier things to build, but of course they're not the protagonists, but you have some very interesting terrain features, cars and big trasher thingies here, Daily Bugle. And so you have these terrain features that you will use to create the battlefield. Most of the things that you see in the battlefield can be thrown at people, which of course is absolutely awesome and very appropriate thematically speaking. It's for 2 players, but of course you could have multiple players controlling the teams. You will form the scenario by using these cards that will give you different objectives and different ways of scoring points. You will have these cards here that will be added to create cinematic effects. Sacrifice when you jump in front of one of your allies to absorb a hit. So on one side of these cards you have very cool Marvel art, and on the other side you have a little bit disappointing or anticlimactic, as these cards are mainly blank. Why not make this text bigger since you have so much empty space? But you have the description of the event that you can use to add even further flavor to the game. And of course, each character will be represented by the miniature that you see here, but most of the information will be contained on this card here. Each character has a large card, such as this one. They're double-sided. On one side, you see the character in full health, and then the character when injured. And here you can see that she looks a little more flustered, and there's a little rip there. In some cases, honestly, they don't look wounded at all. I would think that this guy looks wounded just because it doesn't look quite as sharp as in this other illustration. Other cases, again, the other side looks a little more messed up, so you can tell. So here you have information such as the number of life points that a character has. When a character takes damage equal to or higher than the total that you see there, the character is dazed for the rest of the turn, and then you flip the character to the wounded side. If the character again takes damage up to the number of life points indicated there, then the character is removed from the game. And then we have movement, which is the kind of ruler that the character uses. Some characters have long movement, like Spider-Man. Other characters have medium or short. The size, the number of, let's call them team points that you use when you build your squads. And then defense against the dark cards, no, just kidding, defense against punches, defense against energy, and this is defense against mystical, so it could be defense against the dark cards. My daughters are listening to the Harry Potter audiobooks again, and so I just can't get that stuff out of my mind. Then each character has a number of abilities, and that includes the attacks. You don't have like a standard attack, and that's perfectly fine given the theme, since these characters act in such different ways. So when you will want to perform an attack, you choose one of the attacks indicated on your character sheet. You may have to pay a cost in terms of power tokens. The taser webs, for example, cost 2 power tokens, and so other abilities also cost power tokens. You accumulate them during the game. Each turn you get 1. Then also when you get punched in the face and you receive a number of wounds, or wound tokens, you also receive an equal number of power tokens, representing how you are really trying to collect your energy so that you got punched, you become a lot more powerful. Let's face it, that doesn't make a lot of sense thematically, but it does make sense mechanically, ludically, because after you get a disadvantage, you're powering up, and therefore you become able to maybe use powers to counterattack, and the opponent gets the ability to counterattack to that. And so you have a thematically pretty weak, but mechanically very fun rubber banding mechanism there. So you're going to build the battlefield using your miniatures. You're going to have different objectives. And then the core idea, the core mechanics are very simple, and they better be, because then you'll have a ton of unique effects to account for the unique powers and personalities of the characters. By the way, if you want to pause the video so you can look at these cards more in detail, that's why I'm showing them to you as I talk, to tell you how these characters all behave in very different ways. And again, you cannot have it any other way if you're trying to capture the variety and richness of the Marvel Universe. Also, you can mix and match villains and heroes. So there's nothing wrong with that. Captain America and Crossbones can be in the same team. So Captain can say, hey, Crossbones, remember that time that you killed me? Oh yeah, good times. So you can have these funny interactions like that. But around these very unique characters, you have a very simple, very basic idea, which is characters, teams will alternate. You alternate activating characters. After you activate a character, you place a token next to it to indicate that the character can spell L. They're spelling the L in the wrong direction, like 6-year-olds. I'm kidding. It's a check mark. So you activate a character, you put an activation token. Once everybody activated, the turn is over. You have the cleanup phase. When you activate a character, the character can take 2 actions. They can move, and again, you will use the movement ruler appropriate to the character, long, short, or medium. As you can see, you can even walk around corners, which is very valuable. It's a very valuable skill. Booyah. So you move using rulers that, again, you can bend. And then, or another very common action will be to attack, or to use your powers, again, as indicated here on the card. When you use a power, it's pretty much self-explanatory. You do what it says. When you attack, you use these dice here. And again, if you look at the attack sequence, it's scary how many steps it has, because there are just so many steps in which powers and unique abilities can come into play to add, reduce, modify, change. A million different things may happen. But the core essence is very simple, which is when you attack, you choose one of your attacks. There will be one of these 3 types, physical, energy blast, or mystical. You choose that one, and you will check the range, that your target is in the range. You will see other possible abilities that affect things here. Then you have a number of dice. You will run a number of dice equal to the strength of the attack. The opponent, the target, will roll a number of dice equal to their defense value for that type of attack. So if I'm trying to punch Doc Ock in the face, Doc will roll 4 dice in defense. If I'm trying to blast him with energy, Doc will defend with 3 dice. He's surprisingly good at defending against mystical attacks. So the attacker has a pool of dice, the defender has a pool of dice, you roll them after you apply effects, then you apply effects, then you apply more effects, then possibly you apply more effects. I'm trying to give you a sense that the game really is about applying a plethora of unique effects. If you roll critical results on these dice, then you actually get to roll more dice. For each critical, you roll an extra die. So at the end, after you roll and add extra dice, and guess what? Apply effects, you will have a pool of results for the attacker and the defender. The attacker counts all critical results, all wild, and all hit results as successes. The defender counts all critical results, wild results, and defense results or shield results as successes. At the end, if the attacker has more successes than the defender, then the attacker scored a hit, and the defender takes a number of wounds equal to the difference between the attack and the defense. If the defense is equal to or higher than the attack, then nothing happens. The defender managed to dodge. And then you play cards to apply more modifiers and create more effects. That's awesome. That really is the general idea. I had to keep it vague in general because it is a simple, even basic, but I'm not saying this disparagingly, even basic game in its general workings with a ton of complexity coming from unique abilities and effects. Continue like this, turn after turn, until a player has scored enough points to win the game. Marvel Crisis Protocol miniature game, the core set, which is what I'm reviewing here. I'm gonna say so many negative things about this game that you're gonna think I didn't like it. But I liked it. It's just a game that I don't think is gonna work for everybody. I think a lot of people are gonna get disappointed, maybe even a little bit mad about the game. It's a game that I liked, but I think there are a lot of bumps along the road, and some people will not think that the squeeze is worth the juice, I believe. So, one thing, those miniatures, they are tough to build, and I spent a lot of time. I really wanted to play the game. I did not enjoy building miniatures where a single arm takes multiple pieces to put it together. Crossbones, the face, you have the head, and then you had to glue the face to the head. I cannot believe that they couldn't have a single piece with the head and the face on it, because other characters had the face on already. So that's why I think they're just messing with me. When they decide that the part count and what needs to be assembled, they're just messing with me. There's no way that was a sensible choice. So to me, that was not enjoyable at all, and I know many other people that will not find it enjoyable. But as you can see, I'm not mentioning it as a negative, because for some of you, that's exactly what gets you excited. When you see a miniatures game, again, it's a little bit of a vague term, because you can think of the D&D board games. Everything is already assembled. The miniatures go on the board and you play right away. For some of you, miniature games and a core set of miniature games is more like a lifestyle. It's a commitment, a long endeavor, a mix between a marriage and a religion, because that's how much investment you're going to have. You take into account, you already take for granted, if you like the core set, you're going to spend a lot more money and time adding stuff to it, preparing more materials, and assembling more stuff. Some people pick up a box and they want a game. Some people are okay with it that this box is just the entrance to the rabbit hole. If that's what you're looking for, you're going to love this. Because again, the game is very good. But from the core set, there's still stuff that you have to do. Again, you had to assemble those miniatures that are very challenging unless you're really good at it. I'm not. You may notice I didn't show Ultron, because my Ultron looks so sad and misshapen that if I showed it to you, you would make memes in which he says, "Kill me," and I don't want to do that. Miniatures are challenging for some of you. Yay! For me, ugh. Other things in the course set. The manual is not the full manual. It's pretty thick, and yet it doesn't have the entire information. You're told, go on the website to get the full manual. And I always think, I wish you gave me the full manual. That just doesn't sit well with me. The dice, there are nearly enough dice to play the game. It's just as simple as that. And it's kind of annoying. You get together the attack pool, and then you roll the dice, and then with the critical, there are barely enough to resolve that. So basically, you need to make a note of the results, and then you use the same dice to roll the dice for the defender. It's just not as intuitive, as visceral, as fun, as immersive. The game needs more dice. Again, if this is just the entrance to the rabbit hole, you're going to spend so much money on the system that buying a bucket of extra dice won't be a problem to you. But again, it makes this not exactly a real game. What do you find in the box? But again, the invitation to a long journey. And the game, it's fun. And the strength of the game is how thematic it is, how well it captures the Marvel universe. Precisely because of this, I think it's gonna feel very fiddly at the beginning for a lot of players, because there are just so many unique effects that you have to learn and remember. And I don't think this is a game that I would want to play with somebody who does not already know the Marvel Universe very well. It's a lot easier if you expect what the characters do, which some are universally known, but I don't know that everybody has a good sense of what the Red Skull does with the Cosmic Cube, unless you know the Marvel Universe, or Ultron, or Zemo, or Crossbones. There are just so many of these things that are not universally known. And it's very important that you know not just what your characters do, what the opponent's characters do. Otherwise, if a player has more knowledge than the player with less knowledge is pretty much doomed. So you have to take a lot of information into account to be able just to execute the moves of your characters, and you have to take into account the characters of the opponent if you are to have any hope to prevail. For people that know the Marvel Universe, the characters themselves provide, in a certain sense, their own player aid, their own they are their own crib, but the point remains that there's a lot to take into account. But once everything fits, once you go through and pass all of these bumps, then the game is really exciting. It's really fun. It is the Marvel Universe come alive. Then you have those over-the-top actions where, yes, people jump in front of a bullet to save a friend, and characters do all that you expect them to do. With those blasts of energy, with those picking up stuff and throwing it at the opponent, picking up the enemy and smashing them against things that explode, crazy interactions and synergies. It is what you expect it to be. And again, that mechanic, which is thematically very weak, that the more you're punched, the more you charge up your powers, doesn't work all that well thematic, does not make all that sense. But it is fun because it allows you to power up all of these crazy effects. And then there are other things that are just those cards with unique effects. You can have Iron Man shoot a blast, a Captain American's shield, and that is refracted on purpose. They're working together on purpose. That's refracted and hit somebody so you can shoot around the corner. So much fun stuff that can happen. Crazy battles, crazy action, crazy back and forth as people get to use their best powers after they get punched, and then they punch back, and then the opponent gets to use their best powers. So there's a lot of variety in the kind of actions that you can create, and each battle just has its own unique flavor and flow. However, this truly is a core set. This is not a full game, because to have a good battle, you pretty much need to use almost all of the characters that you have in the core set. Which means the next battle, you're going to shuffle the teams, so the synergies will be different because different characters will be allied with each other. but ultimately it won't take long because you will want more characters, and then you have more of that painful building. For me, more of that exciting building miniatures for some of you. So it truly is an invitation to a large game system. For me, since I don't feel like building more miniatures at this level of detail, I'm happy with the core set. I think I'll play it in the future from time to time. I'm glad that I learned this game, and I'm really happy that I played some of these epic actions here. To me, because of the level of commitment to building miniatures that it requires, it is not a journey that I believe I will pursue in the long run. I guess unless somebody decides to give me, somebody, gives me painted, just assembled miniatures, or some other incentives. I don't know. You come and give me a hug after I've been building miniatures, maybe. But that hobby aspect does not appeal to me, and so this is not a system that I think I'll continue to explore. An alternative actually is if I have the character cards with the stats, I could repurpose some HeroClix miniatures and use those for this game. Now that could be a way in which I explore the system in the future. Then I wish maybe there was a way of just buying everything but the miniatures, and then I'm just using other materials. So miniatures, they're beautiful. If you are a hobby player, I think you're going to love creating a ginormous collection. Please invite me over when the pandemic is finally past, is finally put behind us. Then I would love to play some of these crazy battles. I think there's huge potential, but also for a very specific target audience. And I'm not one of the most enthusiastic members of that target audience is all. I love the action, I love the mechanics, I love the idea, and I love how wonderfully, marvelously well the game captures the Marvel's universe. Too much hobby aspects for me to really enter the rabbit hole and walk along that tunnel for long.